August 7th, 1922, a child was born in the southern town of Memphis, Tennessee, whose entire purpose in life would be to capture millions of words, thoughts, and ideas through the lens of his cameras. For over 6 decades, he faithfully fulfilled his purpose, many times placing himself in harm's way, cursed and beaten by those who did not wish to see truth exposed. Still, he marched on. And the history he documented proved the reality of, among other things, the racial injustice of segregation in the South.
This is my favorite, one of my favorite pictures.
This one here.
Right.
Daddy, I want to be free too.
Right. Because I think it embodies what the whole movement was all about. At that time, it was segregated schools and universities, and she ended up being a very accomplished physician. And I think that sort of tells what the movement in its own way was all about. And Daddy, I want to be free.
This is my dad.
He was a captain with the Memphis Police Department.
He knew Ernest Withers. They served on the Memphis Police Department together. I grew up with the name of Withers in my household. I kind of knew him as the man with the camera, according to my mother. With my father, it was Withers with the camera. And I remember conversations in my home sometimes when my dad would say that Withers had beat them with his camera to the scene of wherever my father had been dispatched to, and he could never figure out how Ernest had beat him to the scene. Mr. Withers photographed the good and the bad. He photographed the world as it was before integration. He showed poverty, he showed lack of opportunity, but at the same time he photographed really good things in Memphis. Mr. Withers' photographs were very extensive and certainly deserving of preservation as far as history goes.
Then one day, 7 years into the beginning of the 21st century, he covered the lens of his camera and laid it down beside him for the last time, and heard the voice within his soul speak, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. Well done." Newspaper editor Arthur Brisbane first wrote in an article in 1911, "Use a picture, it's worth 1,000 words." The number of words an image reflects may vary by culture, but the history of the culture it shows will never be forgotten as long as the picture exists. The history and culture of the historic and photographic archive of Dr. Ernest C. Withers must be preserved and protected.
You know, we work with a lot of museums, presidential museums, the Grammy Museum. At Iron Mountain, we like to say, if you've seen it or you've heard it, it's probably preserved at Iron Mountain. And I think what we're seeing here is so historical in nature. It's a step through time. Preserving what's here is so important. When we get involved in things like this, it's sort of 100 years from now. We don't want somebody to look back and say, you know, why didn't they take better care of these assets, these cultural treasures? And I think, you know, the they that they are talking about is us. So we have to do a better job of making sure that these things are protected and preserved for generations to come. You know, he did I think a phenomenal job of taking care of these treasures, and he's passed this along to his daughter, and I think that she's done a great job and will continue to do a great job to make sure that his legacy is protected over time.
The life's work of this man, Ernest Columbus Withers Sr., now lies in state. It is nestled among the file cabinets and cardboard boxes and paper bag sacks that rest in a makeshift archive. Although some of the photographic images are on display at the museum that bears his name, the massive bulk of his legacy remains in need of preserving. Over 1 million fragile images, photographs, and documents must be preserved to ensure the life, the history, and the culture of the people, places, and events he immortalized will be seen and shared by the generations to come. With every purpose comes a cost. The cost of preserving each image of the Ernest Withers archive is estimated to be $2 each. That computes to over $2 million. But the words and thoughts and emotions these historical images will generate throughout time are priceless.
We were left with this legacy, but no foundation to build it on. But it's very difficult when you are not endowed with what is necessary to do the right thing. And that's the biggest challenge. We need to begin to catalog. We have such a mass of his work that is in paper form, in negative form, and of course the technology today is digitizing.
A photographer contributes an everlasting look at our history and our culture. We, the people, have an obligation to ensure that that contribution is forever preserved. How many words will you help preserve? How much will you contribute today?